BraveMaker Show is hosted by Tony Gapperstone. Thanks for tuning in. It's showtime.
Hey, everybody. It's showtime. Welcome to episode 229. I'm Tony Gapperstone. I am a writer and director and actor based in the San Francisco Bay Area. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am a Caucasian guy wearing a black shirt and a mustard yellow jacket in my BraveMaker studio that's very pink and green and striped. And I'm wearing a new fisherman beanie today that my daughter said makes me look like a crayon. So I'm feeling a little insecure and self-conscious, but you know, it is what it is. I'm going to go with it. I might regret it later. But I have a special guest today. It's just me and the pod today, hosting and chatting. I'm the founder and executive director of BraveMaker, which is a 501c3 nonprofit film organization that does film screenings and an annual film festival in July, production, a BraveMaker acting school that we call the BraveMaker Academy, and so much more. So make sure you follow me on the socials at Tony Gapperstone, or my website is tonygap.com. And you can find us at BraveMaker.org everywhere, or bravemaker.com if you want more information. But my guest today on episode 229, I met in Sundance in January, in the cold of Sundance. And this guy is a mover and a shaker, a writer and a producer, and had a big film that won big out of Sundance, and he's doing all sorts of cool stuff. So I'm excited to get to know Scott Wickman. Scott, welcome to the show. Oh, I don't hear you now all of a sudden. What happened? Let's see if we can problem solve this. So Amy, my producer, if you hear Scott, let me know, because maybe I haven't changed anything on my side, but Scott's mouth is moving and I don't hear him. So talk, Scott, and let's see if the people out there, Amy, if you hear Scott, could you let us know by putting something out into the comments? Scott, if you changed anything on your side, let me know. You didn't change anything. So this is what happens. The show must go on. We're going to figure this out. So Amy says no sound yet. No sound yet. No sound yet. I wonder if that is all of us or if that is just Scott with no sound. So Scott, log back in. Go out and come back in and check your settings and make sure everything is good for you. And while Scott does that, I'm assuming you can hear me. Everybody out there, Tony Gapperstone here. And while Scott is checking his stuff, I'm going to tell you about the BraveMaker Film Festival, which is July 11th through the 14th in Redwood City, California. It's a 4-day film festival. And if you go to our website at bravemaker.com, you'll see a tab that says Film Fest. You can check that out. We're also on, of course, all the socials at BraveMaker Film Fest. And you can find out our next deadline is April 1st. So if you have a film, feature length, short, music videos, all that kind of stuff, you can submit at Film Freeway. and we would love to see your film. We are beginning to do some tentative programming. We're going to do our 50% cut in a couple weeks and let some filmmakers know. Let's see, Scott, are you back?
I'm back.
Yay, he is back. Awesome.
The old turn it off and on again.
Just reset. It's like life, right? Technology and life. Well, Scott, why don't you do your introduction? Tell people who you are, where you are, and what you look like for our inclusive physical description.
Hi, my name is Scott Wickman. I'm a writer and producer based in the San Francisco Bay Area. I am a bald white man with a bit of a scruffy beard going and a little bit more gray than I thought it was as I looked through this. Wearing a nice little green Henley shirt here with Big Modifier being my headset and mic, which was giving us trouble earlier, but is working now.
Scott, two things. You would probably look really great in a fisherman beanie. Okay. And
I would.
Okay. And number two, I think you kind of sound and could be cast as a pilot on Spirit Airlines. Just kidding. Any airline.
Totally fine. Nah, that's about right. That worked out.
Well, hey man, thanks for coming on episode 229. Yeah. So let's before we jump into all the fun stuff and
Sure.
the awards and the titles, let's hear some of the backstory. Like, how'd you get into this business? What's the story?
So, that's the fun thing is that I started in New Mexico, is where I got my kind of early start. I originally was very, like many of us, I'm sure, unsure of what I was going to do with my life leading into college. And I had a major background in stage theater, and that's what I had been doing a lot of from elementary school on up as kind of like a side fun hobby thing. And then when I went to the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, and I got into the theater department there, and that's where I started. And I was so sure I was going to be an actor, and so I did stage theater for quite some time. I did a lot of Shakespeare and all kinds of other stuff in my time there, and I was not a very good student. I wasn't there a lot. I kept finding other things to go do with my time, and then I took a film class on a lark that was literally just film history 101, and I went, wait, this is way cooler. Why am I not doing this? And I had done stage managing as well, and so I had that kind of production-esque side of things in my brain. And then I flipped wholeheartedly about 2 years into college to nothing but film, as well as in my first year of theater and film. I got a film job literally when I was 18, 19. I was 19 in 2004. And I ended up getting hired onto a TV show that at the time no one knew anything about. And I learned a bunch there, and I went, oh, this is even better. And it was interesting because it was conflicting with like my theater schedules and everything else. And then that TV show ended up being season 1 of Breaking Bad. I was a student PA on it. I was getting a stipend, and there wasn't really set hours, and it was a lot of being there when I could type of thing, and learned a lot. And then that also pulled me away from acting, and I went, no, I really am liking this production side of things. So fully switched to a pure film only degree at the college. And as I was getting my degree, I kept in my spare time trying to be on sets as much as possible, producing a few, student films, which is always interesting because, in my experience, it seems like so many people in the film world, when they go into film school, they're like, I want to be an actor, I want to be a director, or I want to be the DP, or sometimes a writer. And very few people are like in film school and they're like, I want to be a producer, I want to do the paperwork. Like people people aren't. So I got to do a lot of like student projects and films because so many people didn't want to be the producer side of things, and I felt very comfortable doing that stuff and being the person that was organization and logistics and making sure it all comes together. Because the big thing that I can say that I really learned, that I felt like in my first 6 years there in New Mexico, was that a big part of being the producer is, yes, there's the organization and logistics, but you're there to have the back of the creatives that are there, right? Like you need to be the rock that the creatives kite is tied to. You got to keep them down to earth a little bit, but you have to be able to be there to kind of support them and have their back. And then so that was kind of the start. And then I came in 2010. I came out to the Bay Area, so I've been here for 14 years. And when I came out to the Bay Area, I was lucky enough to very randomly, serendipitously, whatever you want to call it, on Craigslist. I was living out of a hotel trying to find a place to stay, and I was finding places on Craigslist, and I went through a few and went some interviews and really wasn't finding something. And then I found this lady who was a little bit older than me, and she owned a house, and it was a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, and it was just her, and she wanted someone to move in so she wasn't there by herself, and she was also the house owner. And I was like, okay, and I went and met her, and I interviewed with her. And the next day she said, you can move in. I'd love you to move in. And I went, okay. And then as I was moving in, she goes, part of the reason I had you move in is you remind me of my younger brother, as well as, I'm in film too, by the way. And I went, oh, really? And she goes, yeah, I've worked at Lucasfilm for the past 17 years.
Oh my gosh.
Not only at Lucasfilm, her name's Ardiz, she's phenomenal, but she was the executive assistant and kind of co-head of production at Lucasfilm with Rick McCallum, who was the head of production at Lucasfilm for 28 years. And so suddenly she just went, by the way, are you looking for work? And I went, well, yeah. And so I do some stuff with her and with Rick, and I learned under both of them. And I mean, Rick is, he's old school Hollywood producer. He would go into a meeting with a president of Fox Studios, and they'd be scared to have the meeting with him because he just was such a bulldog of a old school producer. He was, back in the heyday type of things, and he's fantastic. And I learned a lot from him and her as well. And I've just been freelance, my time as well. And interestingly enough, my first major jobs outside of that in the Bay Area was actually tons of music videos. I did a lot of the Bay Area hip hop and rap music videos. So
it's amazing. So having such a lucrative career, you said 14 years, and still being in the Bay, that's really encouraging as a filmmaker in the Bay. I love hearing that. Recently, we had Sam Bempong on the show last week, and they're doing Make It Bay and really trying to revitalize the film commission, film office in Oakland, that kind of thing. It's really exciting. It feels like maybe because pandemic is starting to get a little bit distant from us, that we're seeing more things come to the Bay. What are some of the things that you're as a freelance producer, what are some of the things that you have writer and producer credits and line producer, what are some of the things you find yourself doing on different projects? Are you kind of like the master of all kind of thing? Are you doing a lot and juggling a lot of plates? And then I want to talk specifically, the past year, because you've had some, significant projects that you've been working on that have been popping for you.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's a bit in my brain. It's a bit of that adage of, beware doing a job well, because then, people will stick you to it. I prefer producing, just the straight title of producer, but I'm a very good line producer, and there is not very many of us in the San Francisco Bay Area, especially ones that have feature film experience. Debbie BraveMaker is a big one. Chris Martin's a big one. There's a few others, but it's really not many of us. There's a handful of us. Yeah. And so it's funny because that tends to be what I get the call for when it comes to narrative work the most. When it comes to commercial side works, I'm usually top of the line, producing from everything bottom down, or top down lead producer on all kinds of projects. Like I did in 2017, I did the International Style Guide for Nike, which was massive. And that was, we had 128 crew and, it was 6.5 days and 26 locations, and it was like a almost $2 million budget and 37 talent, 7 children talent, and he had 3 photography teams and a video team. So it's like this kind of crazy, and you're dealing with a lot of different things as the lead producer in that role. And transitioning to the narrative world and doing more narrative stuff, especially as the line producer, is very different because you don't have these clients to kind of answer to, so to speak, in a different way. But it also allows me to focus. And so that's a lot of what I do as a line producer is I'm able to focus on what's in my territory of work to be doing. And I feel like that's what helps me succeed, is too often you have people that get in those positions that maybe try and meddle too much in other areas that they don't need to. And I guess the best way to surmise that is me saying, trust your people that are hired, right? You have your production designers, you have your DPs, you have your department heads, et cetera. Trust them in their jobs and don't meddle so much, right? Like that was a big thing for me that I feel like a lot of people miss is the power to legitimately delegate and trust in that delegation. I love being on set, so like that's the other part of line producing that's sometimes frustrating, is I get
because you're not on set, right? Yeah. So for those who don't know, I know we've probably dropped this definition on here a few times, but a LP, line producer, deals with it. We in its base form, like the lines, like the script. You're reading the script, you're breaking it down, you're creating budgets, you're managing line items and money. And what other things would the line producer be responsible for, office wise and behind the scenes kind of thing?
A lot. I mean, you should, if all is right in the world, the line producer should be involved from the very beginning, right? Because you're going to get handed the script, and then you're making the budget for that script, and then you're already making a pseudo schedule that then you start working with the first AD on. It's very early stages, and you have to have a lot of conversations with the director and the producers, because your job, in my opinion, as the line producer, is to help facilitate all of those things that they want to have happen. And yes, the producers are connected to that and part of that, but at the end of the day, the line producer is doing the minutia and the details of it. And so you're watching the budget, you're you're doing insurance stuff, you're hiring crew, you're renting locations, you're doing invoices, you're dealing with stuff that comes in. It also depends on scale, right? Like in an ideal world, you have a line producer, you have a unit production manager, you have a coordinator and an APOC, and you have supervisors, and you have office PAs, and you have all this other stuff that's supporting you, right? You have an accountant and an accountant team and such. There's sometimes I've worked on projects you don't have much of that. So I'm the, accountant for the project as well as the line producer, as I have a coordinator, or I don't have a production manager. So I'm acting as the production manager and the line producer. So it depends on scale. As you get bigger and bigger, you need those other hands because it's too much for a single person to really take on, and then the job suffers.
Speaking as a independent producer who does a lot of low budget stuff, I'm so used to having to spin those multiple plates. I just got a gig, where I'm doing very small slice of life videos for a company that works with nonprofit social justice organizations all across California. 8 videos, and really, like, the budget I have per video, it's like I'm happy that I can have 3 people, a DP, a sound recorder, and maybe a PA. Otherwise I have to do everything. I barely talk to the DP and say, we're just going to show up on set and capture talking heads and a bunch of B-roll, because I can't put as much work into this because I'm not getting paid to do it. I just don't have the budget, and it's really, really challenging. So what a dream to be able to have all those people to be able to work with. A line producer, when you can afford one, is amazing, and when you get those jobs, it's like, what a gift you are to the whole team and the collective story you're trying to tell. Well, let's talk some specifics, because we met at Sundance, and you were there with a film, was that your first film at Sundance, or have you had many there before?
It was. No. So cool. I just missed. So in 2022, There was 4 feature films, big narrative projects that got shot in the Bay Area. There was
Fremont,
Fairyland, Fremont, Here
Yeah.
She Comes, and Earth Mama. And all 4 of
that's
those
right.
shot in the same 3.5 month period.
Yeah,
and 3 of those 4 all went to Sundance. And I was working on the one that didn't.
You're like, what's the common denominator here? Shoot.
No, it's fine. And it's again, it cuts back to that world of, we're such a small community up here in regards to that, and especially into the line producer thing. All 4 of those projects had called me, seeing if they could hire me to be the line producer. Like, which it feels good, but at the same time, I was like, we got to train some more people up, because a lot of them have been having to come from LA and stuff.
Wow.
I mean,
well, we should talk about that, Scott.
Yes.
I with BraveMaker, I have a very scrappy, emerging, hungry group of filmmakers who want to learn and to create some sort of program or something like that. We should talk, because we probably can find something that would also be beneficial to you, if we could do a workshop or a class. I think that would be really great, especially when our film festival comes in July. So we'll put that on the back burner in chat. But you did get to go to Sundance with your first film. So let's talk about Dee Dee, the audience award-winning film.
Oh man, Dee Dee. So fun story. How I got connected to this film cuts back to the films that had filmed in 2022. Valerie Bush, who is our kind of lead producer on Dee Dee, she was the line producer on Fremont. And we had gotten connected because of some mutual people between those projects, and she got brought on because Sean Wong, our writer and director, and then Carlos Estrada, who was our main producer. And that's Josh Peters, and is also another one of the producers. Josh Peters, Valerie Bush, Carlos Estrada. Those are our 3 producers. They're all phenomenal. And then Sean and Carlos already had a relationship. They were good buds. And then they went, hey, we're going to film all this in Fremont. Why don't we just get the person from Fremont? So they had reached out to Valerie. And then originally they wanted Valerie to line produce. And then when they were telling her all they wanted her to do, she was like, no, you wanted me to be a producer. How about I get us a line producer and I jump on as a producer? And then she called me, and it was nice because she got my name from multiple people that she had reached out to, which is always a good feeling. And I got brought on, and we dove in, and honestly, it with all the challenges that you have with filmmaking, that project felt like summer camp. Even though there was all the craziness of, making a feature film with a director who's first time doing a feature, making it on not, we had a solid budget, but it wasn't massive, and we did so many things that were fun. And I think part of the summer camp feeling was also the majority of our cast were kids. They're all between 12 and 16, 17 years old. A lot of them, a very large amount of our cast were first-time actors. They had never acted in things before. Our casting director, Natalie Ann Lynn, and Nafisa, those 2, they killed it. They did so many amazing they were out literally going to skate parks and just talking to random kids that were skating at skate parks and stuff like that. Just found so many beautiful, wonderful people to come on. Casting wise, I was able to bring on my producing partner and good friend and longtime collaborator, Jillian Mahar, who's phenomenal, and she came on as my unit production manager. And we made a family in the office. We had our production coordinator, Jack Fahey, and our assistant production coordinator, Alexa Rosero, which I think you also have met.
Yeah, I met a bunch of them from your team. That's great.
She was such a great production office. As much as I love everyone on that project and working with everyone, I feel like every day with the team that was in the room and outside of on set and back and forth and everything, those core 4 of us, we had a great time.
You can really tell when a crew bonds, because it's stressful. We know it's hard work. It's sometimes long days, but when you love the people you're working with and you trust them and it's a good story, all those things intersect and it comes out at the celebration, at the screening. And I saw that in all of you. It was really great. I was lucky enough to stay with, or Matt, your gaffer, stayed with me.
Yes.
Because Josie Rodriguez, who was on your set as well, who I know and I'm friends with, said, "Oh, you need to meet Matt. He's looking for a place to stay." And we had a couch in our condo. I'm like, "Yeah, he can crash on our couch for a couple $100 a night because it's expensive to go to Sundance." And I just loved Matt, and now we're working together next week on
that's awesome.
a project. So it's just beautiful. Like, again, Bay Area connections and being able to celebrate, some. Because I felt like I won in a way. Like, you see a Bay Area film winning and getting such accolades. It's a beautiful thing, so all of you, like the rising tides, right, rises all ships. I think the Bay Area felt such pride for you all. It's very cool.
Yeah, we it was such a special film. That's the best way to put it. I know a lot of people say that. I mean, my biggest thing that I told Deshaun, after we saw it on the premiere, which I had gotten offered to see some test screenings and some early things, and I said I don't want to see it until I see it on the big screen at the premiere.
Sure.
There is many times in our industry that you don't know how a project's going to go. It might sound like it's going to be great. It might have all the hallmarks of being a great thing, and you do it, and then the final product is maybe not what you thought, or you don't know what the attention it's going to receive, whether it's going to be critically acclaimed or dropped in the bucket. You don't know how it's going to go. It kind of cuts back to I did the one project of the 4 that didn't go to Sundance back in 2022. You just don't know. Every project you pick is a little bit of a gamble, and that's true for many of the positions, especially actors and such. And so you kind of just have to have faith in things. And by and large, there's a lot of projects in my life that I have worked on, and I see the final product and I go, I'm happy with this. Or you go, this is cool. Or you're proud to say that you worked on it. I've also worked on things that afterwards I'm like, maybe I won't tell anyone about this one. Or, you say, well, this doesn't come out the way I thought it would. Or, it didn't get the attention that you felt it deserved, or, all over the place. Dee Dee, is one of the very, very few that
amazing
is so full heart, absolutely proud, probably one of the best things I've ever worked on.
So you posted on Instagram, and I'll just quote it. So those of you who are listening, I'm also showing it. And if you watch it on the live or on the replay, you will see it at Scott's Instagram, which is monster_writer. He says, Dee Dee the movie is an absolutely amazing piece of love, story, and art. I wish nothing but for the entire world to experience it. I promise you it will connect and resonate no matter your age or background. It is not biased to state this film is phenomenal. I watched it with my kids because I did the online Sundance experience. I couldn't get a ticket while I was there in person for the first week. It was sold out. Tried the wait list, did not get in. But I got the second week pass to watch, or not pass, but I bought a bunch of them. It was great to watch it with my kids who are middle school and to kind of poke at the middle school, teenage coming of age experience. It was really cool. You all should be very proud. Yeah, not any well-known actors, mostly acted by kids. That is, I think, a feat in and of itself in the indie film world, because you keep hearing you have to have, big names, and well-known faces. And it really was a story that anybody could connect. And I heard a woman, a friend of mine, say she saw herself in it, and it's primarily about a Asian teenager, so I love that is what stories and good stories can do to us. So kudos to you, Sean, the whole team. Sean was just at the Oscars doing his documentary, Nine and Waipo, and then he's at South by right now. I mean, what a cool wild ride. But for you, Scott, you also have a huge resume of amazing work. If you go to Scott's website, it's scott-wickman.com. You can see he has worked with Ryan Reynolds and done Nike ads and all sorts of Kamau Bell, all sorts of really cool projects. So I'd love you to kind of talk about some of the stuff that you're really most proud of in the work that you've done in the past.
So that's it's always interesting because it kind of cuts back to what I was saying of you never know really sometimes, like, we have this weird intersection of art and business and in our world that a lot of other mediums don't have. And there is a lot of things that you can sign on to and you do because you're like, hey, I need to work. I need to pay my rent. I need a paycheck. And you can sometimes be very lucky. And I feel like I've been very lucky that I've also gotten to sign on to a lot of things that are really fun and turn out great. So,
Yeah.
An example being the Aviation Gin, very early on. It was like right after Ryan had bought Aviation Gin. The very first commercial was The Process.
Wow.
And that commercial was done in Napa Valley in the Bay Area up at Monkey Ranch, which is an awesome ranch that you can rent out for filming at up in Napa Valley area, Sonoma area. And it just so happened that the director was like friends with him. And I knew the director, and the director was like, hey, do you like, him and his producing partner were like, hey, we want to come to the Bay Area and shoot. We get this commercial with Ryan Reynolds. And I was like, why do you have that? And he goes, oh, I've been friends with Ryan for like 9 years. And I was like,
nice.
You never told me that. I've known you for like 6 and you've never, and he was like, yeah, don't make it a big deal. I was like, okay. And then we did a ton of stuff with him. A major director of photography. Worked with a bunch, Nick Mahar. He shot a ton of things. He pulls you into some kind of random stuff. I ended up in one of the Aviation Gin commercials.
Oh my gosh.
Because it was literally on set and they came up with this idea for like a final moment scene, and then they went, well, who are we going to cast for that? We didn't cast anyone. We didn't have budget set aside for money and yada. And the director and the creative producer George literally looked at me and they're like, I mean, you could do it. And I went, fine. And so I'm just sitting in the scene and playing that character. It was funny. It's really good times. We had a blast doing a lot of those, and that's the fun thing is that I know a lot of times people can be very hard on commercial work because a lot of it can feel very quote unquote soulless, or it's like, well, this is all marketing based or whatever, and it's like, where is the creativity, where is the art side of things? And I've been lucky enough that I've worked with a lot of companies and brands that I feel like have done really great things, like the Aviation Gin stuff, or some other companies that I've had the pleasure of getting to work with. And you just when you're doing stuff like that, again, sometimes it's just the fun of what you're doing overrides the craziness of all the things you have to do to film. So that's pretty nice that I've gotten to do a lot of that. I will say music videos is also a major thing that I did a ton of those. I mean, when I first came to the Bay Area, very early days, I was at a small kind of pseudo film school that I wasn't there for too long, but I made a lot of connections while I was there. And these two wonderful directors, Suj and Sebastian. Sebastian sadly passed away not too many years ago, but both of them are phenomenal directors. And I met them very early in their career, and I basically was helping produce a lot of their early stuff. And they had gotten connected with a bunch of the Bay Area hip hop and rap scene. And so I worked with all at HBK and Saves the Gemini and Clyde Carson, Tracks a Million, Too Short, just
cool.
Kilo, Cool John,
Too Short. Speaking
guys.
of Sundance, Freaky Tales, how fun! That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, another Bay Area film making it to Sundance. They actually had a panel that I wasn't able to go to because I left before they had it, but there was a panel that I believe was called Bay Area at Sundance or San Francisco at Sundance, because we've been getting more and more variety. I mean, I feel like, and I could be proved wrong by others, that kind of the indie scene for filmmaking out here really got kind of revitalized with Fruitvale Station with Ryan Coogler, and then it's just been kind of churning up more and more. We had like Last Black Man in San Francisco with Joe Tablet. Obviously, a huge one is Boots Riley, who's a major proponent for the Bay Area with Sorry to Bother You and his TV show I'm a Virgo, and like just so many things. It's more and more and more. And like I said, we had 4 film in 2022, and then we had Freaky Tales and DD, and I believe there was 2 other features that also shot last year that were kind of independent films. Like, people are realizing that the Bay Area is this great place for filming, and it's wild because in reality the Bay Area is the birthplace of film. The very, very first film ever shot, that was the horse, them taking the bet on whether or not all 4 of the horse's hooves were off the ground mid-stride, when that photographer strung all those cameras together and made the first actual motion thing. That was done in the Bay Area.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, that was shot in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so we also have, Pixar, the birthplace of Adobe Photoshop, and Adobe was up here, the birthplace of the THX sound system, which was the first kind of foray into the standardization of sounds for theaters worldwide, right? The Thomas Honnelson, I can never say his name right, but the THX Thomas Honnelson Cross or something similar to that, I will never pronounce his name properly. That THX sound system that everyone knows, that was born in San Rafael at the 3210 Studios, which in 1978 was ILM. It was the very early ILM. It was right after he had done A New Hope, and then George came up to the Bay Area and created ILM and Lucasfilm and all that stuff, and kind of developed a lot of that up here. And so there was the studios in San Rafael. And then they moved over to the Presidio, and you have the ranch and Big Rock Ranch and Skywalker Ranch and all that. And so you have so many firsts and so many major film things that happened here in the Bay Area that were industry and world changing, and how a lot of those things occurred. And so there's this I think unknown kind of side of the film of history, or the history of film.
Yeah, thanks for dropping these gems here. Dropping the Bay Area history knowledge. I love it.
I'm not from here, but I tell people that I consider the Bay Area my home. I grew up a military brat. I moved all over the place. I was born in the UK and was in 3-4 countries and like 8-9 states by the time I was like 18. Like, I was all over the place, and so this is the longest I've ever lived in a single place. And I don't plan on anytime soon changing that. And I'm a very big proponent of the Bay Area film industry, and wanting to push that, and wanting to have more occur here, because we have it. And I really, really wish more and more people from out of town would consider using the talent and the people that we have here. Because I do see, like we were talking about, how often you see productions come in from out of town, and they bring their people from LA or from some other state and such, and it's like, we have the talent and the people for a lot of those things here. Bring less people, let us fill those things, fill those positions, fill those roles. Like, I promise you it'll work out well for you, especially because we are such of that big small community where a lot of us do know each other and we are connected. So when you need to get something done, it's pretty easy, because you probably are friends with whoever you need to talk
there's
to.
A huge network. We can do it. We can make it happen. Hollywood, we're doing it. We're making it happen here. You don't need to bring everybody from wherever. It's here. So you heard it from Scott. You can find Scott on the interwebs. Go to his website, scott-wickman.com, and you can also find him at monster_writer on Instagram. Thanks so much, Scott, for doing your thing. And I just recommended him to some filmmakers who are doing some work. So I validate this man's creativity and production skills, and who I hope that you get some more gigs, and the Bay Area benefits from those gigs. So don't go away, y'all. This is going to be our last segment where we're going to give you our favorite things of the week.
Brave Faves. TV shows, films, books, songs, technology, clothing, podcast, food, and more. These are a few of our favorite people, places, and things. Brave Faves.
All right, I am jumping on the train with my one brave fave for the week, and it is Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Oh my gosh, it's on Amazon. It is so good. You probably have heard it if you are anybody who follows anything happening in pop culture. It is Donald Glover and Maya Erskine playing the titular couple that was made famous by Brangelina. That's Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt back in the day with the movie. And it's a episodic show on Amazon. It's so good. It's so smart. It's engaging. It's funny. It also is like, I'll say this in the most best way possible. It lets the characters breathe. You would think it's a spy kind of thing. It's going to move fast and it's going to be all this espionage all the time. But no, it's really about relationship and marriage, and that kind of really got me. So I recommend it. Take a watch on Amazon Prime. Scott, what do you got? What's your favorite thing of the week?
Oh man, that one's easy. It's the miniseries Shogun. I am a huge fan of what they've done with the show so far. It's based on the James Clavell novel from like 1975, I want to say. Yeah. And it's a historical fiction that's based on kind of the first Englishman that made it to Japan in the early 1600s. It's like 1601 or something like that, I believe. And it's based on real historical things, but made with fictionalized characters that are inspired by a bunch of those real historical characters. There was like an old movie that was done, there was an old miniseries done in the early 80s. And so this is technically a remake, but it's done so phenomenally well. The characters and the acting is all fantastic. I absolutely love the show. I encourage people to definitely watch it. I mean, Hiroyuki Sanada plays our kind of main Lord Tornaga character, and he's such a fantastic actor. I love him, and he's really good in that role. He's been in a ton of things.
Well, you have your orders for the weekend, BraveMaker. The Oscars are over. Award season has finished, and now you can sit back and watch some shows and catch up. You've got Shogun and you've got Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Scott, thank you so much for jumping on the show with me and sharing your experience and being a Bay Area maker. And having met you at Sundance, I'm hoping we're going to intersect more than just at Sundance. So we got to find a way to connect. So stand by for a second while I say thank you to everybody watching and listening. This is the 229th episode of the BraveMaker Podcast. We're here every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Central. We invite you to, I just realized my light went out in the back. Invite you to join us live here on our YouTube page or listen on our audio replay and share it with your friends, people who might be interested or inspired by some of these stories. Thank you to our producer, Amy Cohen out of Austin, Texas, and our intern, Jessica Cohen, who is crushing it on our social media, posting all of these clips. You'll see the Brave Faves going up because she takes the episode and puts it out there for everybody in little bite-sized chunks. Also, thank you to our social media manager, Carrie Alley, and Barnell Amos, our podcast editor out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Don't forget, our 6th annual BraveMaker Film Festival is coming up, and that is happening July 11th through the 14th. We still have submissions open until April 30th. So get your films in there. Please follow us on all the socials at BraveMaker.org. If you liked what you're seeing, rate, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Say hi in the comments. We are very active with our team, and we love filmmakers and film lovers alike. Okay, cool, awesome. We'll be back next week with another amazing filmmaker. Until then, make sure you follow Scott on all the socials. Thank him for his time. Follow his career, because you never know where his work is going to end up. Thanks, Scott, so much for being a part of this today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, you got it. We'll stay in touch. All right, brave stories change the world, and you are the story. See you soon, everybody.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at BraveMaker.org. Like, subscribe, and share. To become a monthly donor, text the word BraveMaker to 44321 or go to bravemaker.com/donate. Thanks for tuning in.